Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and joining me today is Tess Rollins. She is the new Executive Director of the Old Town Fairfax Business Association located in Fairfax City, Virginia. Welcome, Tess.
Well, thank you for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
It is. So you are new to the city of Fairfax as the Executive Director, and I'm interested in you sharing with the people who are viewing what your role is and how you came to be the Executive Director of this organization that was founded in 2018 to represent the businesses that are in the historic part of the city of Fairfax.
Yep, that is correct. So I've actually just been onboarded here in Fairfax City on October.
It's really recent.
Yeah, beginning of October.
I want to say that I must have met you like in your first week or something.
Absolutely.
I think maybe at Rock the Block is when we met. I'm not sure. I think that's
exactly
when
it was. So basically, I volunteered for the Asian Festival on Main, which is the event that Old Town Fairfax Business Association hosts. We're actually getting ready to work on our third annual event, and one of my friends said, "Hey, would you like to volunteer and give back to the community?" Which is something that people love, to come to me and ask, because I love to give back to the community. So I actually am a graphic designer and a brand strategist and work in the Herndon area. So with Herndon and Reston businesses, it's something that I've developed in my community where I live. So I said, sure, of course, with having an Asian background, I am Filipino American. And my mom always told me, give back to your community. Whenever you're good to somebody, they're going to be good back to you. So we had a great time in May, and it was a huge turnout for the second annual Asian Festival. And OTFBA had an opening that came up for the executive director. They had already worked with me, and they said, maybe you should put your name in the hat for that.
Well, you've got a lot of skill sets that I can see would be very applicable. Brand management, branding strategy, and you've also hosted your own show in Herndon.
Yes. So I have a show called Simply Enhance. It's in Herndon. I was actually a guest on somebody else's show, a friend of mine. And from there, they were like, would you like to, host your own show? Just let us know what you want to do. So my passion for me is small businesses. I think that they're an integral part of the neighborhood. I think that those mom and pop stores they're the ones that are going to work with you, right? So when you have a last minute birthday, or you have an event, or everything else is closed, it's usually the mom and pop stores that are going to work with you and get it done, because they know what that's like and it's their passion. So for me, it's really important for those small businesses to stay viable. And I actually branded the name of the show. I left my corporate gig in 2019 and branded the name of the show Simply Enhance, started my own graphic design and brand strategy, worked with small businesses, and continued to showcase them. Now, I actually launched the business in January 2020, not knowing that 8 weeks later we would be in a pandemic. But, what worked out for me is that I was able to go back to some of the past guests that were on the show, see how they were doing, and start working with them on still being visible even with their doors shut. How could they be visible, whether it was, an online vendor event, or, maybe showcasing their products online. So that's kind of how I actually got to be able to develop and then continue to showcase businesses. So for me, this new position with Old Town Fairfax Business Association, it's going to give me that opportunity to, again, get in the neighborhoods, get those small businesses more visibility, and so that they can continue to be viable as they transition out of the pandemic.
Well, and the pandemic, it was stressful for everybody, but certainly small businesses that are retail and face-to-face retail businesses. And Fairfax City has a number of small businesses. I think about like Mobius Records, for instance. So businesses had to struggle with, what do we do when people are not coming in our stores and everybody is stuck at home? I think we all had to learn to do business differently. But coming back out of it, it seems to me the first Asian festival that was held was in May of 2021. July of 2021.
Yep.
It was 2021, I remember. And July of 2021, and people thought the pandemic was over. They thought COVID was over. And so I think there was a pent-up interest in people coming together for that particular festival. And it was great that that particular festival, which really is the first of its kind that I'm aware of in Northern Virginia, period, being in the city itself, people came out in droves. And then we had the Omicron in December, and then everything was kind of thrown back into, is it over or is it not over? So you coming on board in 2022, it was kind of like, is it over and are we back? But again, a tremendous turnout of people for that festival.
I think we got really lucky. OTFBA was looking for a way to get the community connected. They had always wanted to do a street closure type event and weren't exactly sure. And about 30 to 33% of the businesses in Old Town are actually Asian owned. Me knowing that the way our culture is put your head down, just work hard, don't spotlight yourself, don't showcase yourself. That's kind of how we do business, and that's kind of how we were raised. As long as you work hard and do your and don't get in trouble, you're good to go. And I think that during the pandemic, because of whether it was just stories or gossip or whatever was out there in the media during the pandemic, that a lot of Asian-owned businesses were hurting. And this was a good way to not just showcase them, but celebrate our
is the key.
culture.
Celebrate.
And everybody was celebrating in the streets because that was a great way for us to gather and still sort of be safe, right? We were outside,
outdoors.
We weren't sure. And everybody came out. We had a beautiful day. It was, probably the warmest May day we could have had. We even had a storm that day as we were closing up shop, and the rainbows came out as everybody was clearing up. But it was a success because the neighbors, the community wanted to come out. They needed something to do that. And so we're looking forward to celebrating and make it even bigger this year or next spring.
Well, you bring up an interesting point about the number of Asian-owned businesses in Fairfax City and the fact that we have a large Asian population, predominantly Korean, in the city. I think the last census showed like 19% of the residents of Fairfax City are Asian American. And I don't think people necessarily who are outside our city are cognizant of that. Because why would you be cognizant of what our census numbers are? But we have wonderful business owners there. And so it made sense actually to bring a festival like that to where you have Asian-owned businesses already. But talk a little bit about how diverse the Asian community is. I mean, the Asian community is not just Koreans or Vietnamese. I mean, it includes people from the Indian continent, right?
Correct. I think that's something that most people are not really cognizant of. What happens is it's Southeast Asia that most people kind of understand, and not knowing that it actually expands further than that. In my family, we've had military people in our family, and it's funny when they come home and they correct us and say, hey, don't forget, this part is also Asia as well. And I think that it's that immigrant or first generation business owners or community members, residents that come in. That's what makes Fairfax City, I think, just
vibrant.
Exciting.
Vibrant
and exciting.
Yes.
Because it's much better to walk around when you can find somebody that understands you, right? When you can find a friend that can understand you, and then you can introduce yourself to other people in different cultures and learn from them. So to me, I think it's a great neighborhood. When you walk down, especially when you walk down Old Town, you see historic buildings, you see new buildings, and you see the same thing in businesses. You see new business owners, you see business owners who have been established.
True. And
I'm just really excited to work with them. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And you've got an interesting board of directors. I know some of the people on your board. And Jensen, who owns Highside, I think was the chair.
That is correct.
Of the Asian American Festival this year. And he's wonderful. And he's so involved in everything that goes on downtown. And I think the business owners seem to me to have really good relationships with each other.
Yes, we're starting to. I think what happened is during the pandemic, obviously a lot of us were closed in, but I know that with the OTFBA, some of the things that they wanted to do was just make sure that the business owners were informed, right? So in the community, because sometimes that gets missed, you know.
The communication aspect.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the city of Fairfax, there's a lot of communications, there's a lot of different types of residents, and so just helping disperse the information and how to, you know, get some resources and get some assistance, or even just get some more knowledge. And where to go. I think that that's what's helpful with the Merchants Association. So I think that that's going to be something going forward, that we're going to not just showcase the businesses and not just, you know, but get them resources and hopefully get more collaboration so that they are more of a unified, you know, neighborhood. If something happens, you know, there are some products out there and some services that actually are complementary.
Absolutely.
So I am more about collaboration over competition. I think that, you know, the insight that they can have, whether they have products or services that they can offer the community, maybe do something together. And that kind of helps because now you don't feel like you're doing it by yourself.
Absolutely, and small festivals too, because Mara on Main did a festival recently in the fall to support breast cancer awareness and research, and it was in their back parking lot, which is really small. But so many people came. And my husband and Tom and I went, and it was a beer tasting, and there were other merchants that were there. And these sort of pop-up smaller festivals seem to me this is a perfect place to do it, is in the historic downtown.
Oh, yes. And I think that those are the things that some of them are interested in doing, but they're not exactly sure how to do it. So that's why I think with the collaborations and maybe even just communications between them saying, hey, this is how I did it. This is how you can do it, or maybe give them a little bit of insight sharing. That's the types of things that I want to do when we get together. I know that with the Old Town Fairfax Business Association, one of the things we also want to do is promote more safety resources. We're working currently with the police department and you know, making sure that merchants are not afraid to report any, you know, activities that they may see, or if there's something that they can do as a community. I know one of our board members owns a martial arts, and one of the things they want to offer is possibly some safety
Oh,
defense.
that'd be great. Self-defense,
you know,
right?
So, yeah, because some of the merchants are not getting out until very late at night,
Right.
when it's dark, and we want them to have all different kinds of resources.
Yeah, to feel safe.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, we're going to talk more about this. We're going to go to a quick break. And when we come back, we will be talking with Tess Rollins. She is the new executive director of the Old Town Fairfax Business Association in Fairfax City. So we were talking about all the ways in which Old Town Fairfax Business Association has been involved with doing events in the city. Let's talk a little bit about the collaborations between the OTFBA and the city,
Sure.
with the Chamber of Commerce, with individual merchants. There's a lot going on in the city that people may not be aware of.
There is a lot going on. So there are two community partners that we do a lot of things with. Obviously, we love, you know, Parks and Rec because they set everything out for us. So I have to do a shout out to them whenever we have these events. They go above and beyond helping us with that. However, we are working with the Chamber, the Central Fairfax Chamber of Commerce. We work with Jennifer Rose there. We also work with the Fairfax Economic Development Office. So whenever they have their events, we kind of support them along with the chamber. A lot of times we'll go into meetings and it's easier if you've got more people, right?
Right.
So more hands, less work.
Right.
And a lot of times it's just fresh ideas. Okay, this is what we've done last time. How can we make it better? And we want to make it better for the community. It's not for us. It's to put on something where families can come. We don't want just the same people coming all the time. We want people from our neighboring towns and cities to come visit. We want them to see what Fairfax has to offer. So what would make you, I live in the town, I live right outside the town of Herndon proper, in Herndon, and I'm right on that Herndon Reston line. And they'll ask, what would make you drive, 20, 30 minutes to come into Old Town? And I'm like, what I really like about it is we can walk around the block and we can have that neighborhood feel. And you can just see things and you don't have to drive to every single thing. And there's a lot that you can see. There's a lot of shops that you can visit. And what I want to do is make that more viable and more attractive for people to come. So those are the things that sometimes we talk about. The other thing that I really like about us working together as community partners, we don't feel like we're competing against each other. We're working with each other within the neighborhood. Yes, there are some events where we host, but then we always ask, hey, can you guys, help us out as far as promoting, or is there something that you can do? Or they'll ask us, even if it's just borrowing equipment. I mean, that could be, that's a huge resource for us to be able to do that. Be able to offer to each other, some help. Maybe it's just, hey, can you let your members know that something's going on, so that maybe the business members can have a special during that particular time frame. So we do try to work hand in hand. It's been really fun. I mean, I've been here a short time, but we did the same thing during the Asian Festival. And I think that starting those building blocks and planting those seeds then has made it a little bit easier for me to transition into this position. I'm still learning a lot of things, trying to, figure out the differences. I think the hardest thing for me was when they would tell me, meet me at Old Town Square, or meet me at Old Town Plaza.
You're trying to figure out where that is.
Yeah, luckily it's only like a block or two away.
It's pretty small downtown. Pretty small.
Yeah, I could kind of figure it out. But again, it's so much fun. And I think that one of the things, especially with the events, is that we get the opportunity a lot of times to give back to other nonprofits. And that's important.
Yes. For many years, I was on the board of Bright Paths, and Highside did their beer festival in the back, and they were great at making us the recipient that year. And again, the event that was hosted by Mara on Main was to benefit breast cancer. And so the Asian American Festival also delivered a huge check to a nonprofit.
We did. We recently, we were actually able to raise, which is great because it was our second, our first event, we kind of broke even. The second event, we were actually able to make a little bit of a profit, and we were able to raise a few $1,000s to give to AA Lead. So, that's a young Asian American nonprofit, and what they do is they help more youth, so Asian American youth. So that was really great to even be able to give back. I mean, I remember sharing that with my mom. I'm like, Mom, this is really cool. It was our second event, and we were able to actually, raise some money to donate to them. And she was like, see, that's what happens. It makes you happy. It makes everybody else happy.
Well, it does, and it creates a lot of energy too. And so looking at the big events, so Rock the Block, which is seasonal, I think it's May to October. And I know that the merchants are involved in that event. And people, to your point, come from all over. They come from the county, they come from Vienna, they come from all over the place. And so the city is obviously working to make these festivals to create a destination space. I know the Economic Development Office is also looking to not only create destination events, but to show potential businesses why it makes sense to be located especially in our downtown, because we do have walkability down there, and it would be nice to have more restaurants or more, people are like, where are the boutique shops, What do you think, going forward is going to make the difference as far as attracting businesses into some of the storefronts that are empty right now?
I think that talking about the walkability, let's talk about transportation. They can use a Q bus to come in. And I think that there's so many people that don't know about even the public transportation. I know that when we did the fall festival, the fall crawl recently, that was one of the things I kind of hung out, and there was a couple of us that were just actually at the bus stop, and people that were there, they just didn't know where to go, so we were directing them. And it was kind of like, oh, that was a thought. Maybe we should have somebody, when we're having these events, maybe we should have our volunteers kind of just right there at the bus stops to kind of direct them around.
That is a brilliant idea. In fact, I'm thinking you could even put temporary signs at the Q bus stops that say festival downtown and the hours so that people know, get on the bus here and go to the festival down there. It would be such a simple thing to do, but probably incredibly effective.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because during the fall crawl, and they didn't know necessarily where some of the businesses were. They didn't know necessarily where it started. I actually grabbed a couple of volunteers. We stayed at the Q bus, and we had the little passports that everybody uses for the fall crawl, and it had a little map. But it was nice to have somebody. Some of them were actually there for the fall crawl. Some of them weren't.
Just random.
Yeah,
they were just here for something else.
Well, they were coming. Some of them were just coming down to eat. So it was really cool to go. We're actually having a fall crawl, and some of our establishments were having some specials, for dinner or lunch. And so they were like, oh, this is really cool. So I think it's more of those things for our events, like even with Sunday sessions. We had Sunday sessions, and we had a few people that would come out and watch that. That was also, part of what the EDO put on, and we helped support that as well. So, that kind of music, live music out on the plaza. There's some other ideas of maybe extending that or having something after the Sunday sessions are done for like the evening. So, those are some of the things that we're talking about. It's just trying to think about what would make you come out of your house, because other than you're ready to come out of your house.
Right. But also to stay. I noticed after the Fairfax Fall Festival, there was live music in the Old Town Square, which I think that was the first time that I recall that there was a program after the festival.
Yes.
And there were a lot of people there.
The whole thing was basically, as people were starting to shut down for the festival, what do we do now? And I think that what happens is you have this big festival, and then at the end of it, they're still excited. They don't want to go home.
And you don't want them to, because the longer visitors to our city stay downtown, the more opportunities they are to get something to eat or to buy something in somebody's business.
Yeah, and I think so one of the other things that we would like to foster more through the Old Town Business Association is that we want to get to the students at JMU. They're right there.
I know they are right there. So talk a little bit about the Flats on University, because now we've got high density housing for the first time in historic downtown. We've never had high density housing, and we're looking at like 800 people living there.
Yeah, so one of the things, other than advertising with them about the businesses, is working with the businesses to see if there's any opportunities for them to work and stay there. That way, they're within walking distance, school and work. They don't have to leave the city to go somewhere else to work and then have to worry about transportation or safety. So those are the things that we're looking into. We'll be talking about with some of the businesses to see what those opportunities are, whether they're seasonal or whether they're full-time.
I'm excited about that too. When I first came to George Mason University, I moved into the dorms on campus in October of 1981, and that was the first dormitories. It was a commuter school. Nobody lived there. I mean, it's hard to wrap your mind around that, to look at the campus now, and thousands of students live on it. But no, I was in a very small group of people who moved in 1981. And so I had a work-study job on campus. I didn't have a car. I rode the Q bus, and the Q bus also started in 1981. So for people who didn't have a car, you lived on campus, you took the Q bus. But with the students who live at the Flats on University, to get a part-time job that you can walk to, and then the benefit, because I talked with Craig Smith of Twins Ace Hardware, and he goes, we're always looking for good people. We're always looking for workers. And I'm thinking, this is just the optimal situation to have young people, both as consumers of experiences and food and goods, but also the potential staffing, since people are struggling to find adequate staff for their businesses. To me, it seems like it's everything good about that project.
Yes, I agree. I talked to our chair, Josh Alexander, and he's with ERPS. And that's one of the things that we talk about, is how do we get, not just the people that live around there, but how do we get the youth and the younger generation?
Yes.
I don't want to say youth, but the younger generation, they're right there and they're looking for things. I mean, it's hard, right? I mean, it's hard to have to balance, time and figure out time for studying and time for travel,
it's
commuting.
It's a matter of convenience. And that's the thing. Years ago, when some of our businesses like Smoothie King, Red Hot and Blue moved locations onto the campus, and then suddenly the students didn't have to go very far to get something to eat that they wanted and have a variety of things because our businesses moved onto the campus instead of figuring out drawing the students into the city.
Right.
So knowing that, I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a heavy lift to now entice these young people into the city, except we've got a core of them now living there.
Right.
So I'm very optimistic that there will be reasons for more of the students to come off the campus and into our downtown.
And I think it's fun because there is a variety of businesses there. We have the martial arts, we've got gyms and personal trainer things, but there's also a game shop right in the middle of Old Town, right next to a couple doors down from Declue. So, there's a coffee shop. There are things that they can do, and I think that's what they're looking for. They're looking for not just convenience, but they want to feel belong. Want to feel like they belong as well. So for us at OTFBA, we want not just the businesses to feel like a family. We want anybody that's going to come in to Fairfax City or Old Town specifically, to feel like their family too.
Absolutely, and I think it's exciting for kids to get off the campus. It's a very international, very diverse population, and even though the campus provides so much, it's not the same thing as a real town.
Correct.
And it's all students too, where you come into town and it's like lots of different kinds of people of all different ages.
Well, our goal ultimately would also for them to stay here, right?
Right.
Not just to be here for school. We want them to be able to find,
a place
a
reason
live.
to stay in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's great if if they're here for 4 or 5 years. However, it's better if they just become one of us.
I agree with that. And of course, working on housing all of those people who would love to stay with us is a whole separate issue. But I think the economic development piece of this, there's lots of reasons to be very optimistic, but particularly about the downtown and moving businesses into the downtown and getting more people to patronize the businesses that are downtown, because feet on the street are what make the difference in whether businesses are successful or not.
Yeah, what I really like is Josh and I have this idea. Instead, at least temporarily, instead of me having a sit-down office, an official office, is I'm actually working with the businesses for me to just kind of hang out at the businesses and work from there so that people can come and ask me questions, or so that we can encourage the neighboring businesses to come to each other's businesses.
I love this idea. So, for those of you at home, if you want to find Tess Rollins, look around the historic downtown business area. This has been what you need to know.